This stuff. I'm gonna start the recording now before I
Perfect.
forget.
All right.
Welcome everybody to the DC Buzz. I'm here tonight with Tanya Webb, who is a film graduate from the 2015 film class. She's a art expert in general. Tanya and I went through the film program together, and now she has very fun blue hair, which she did not have.
Yeah, it's kind of my thing now. It's my post-COVID, like, get it back out in the real world thing. So, hello, everybody, and I apologize for being a few minutes late. Two rules in living in Atlanta. One, technology will never work the way you want it to. And two, you will never get from point A to point B as fast as you think you will.
Excellent to know. So do you want to just take it away? You want prompting or?
I'll talk a little bit about what I do, and then I'll let you prompt from there forward.
All right, so
Okay.
lead on in. Tell
All
us a
right.
little about yourself.
Okay. Like Jessica said, I graduated from Full Sail fall of 2015, and I moved to Atlanta. I was lucky enough to get into Tyler Perry Studios as a production assistant for set decoration. And where I thought I originally maybe wanted to do documentary work, because I also have a journalism degree, I ended up finding out that I really loved the art department. And I was fortunate enough to have a decorator take me under his wing and worked for him for almost 5 years and worked my way into a buying position. And it's just a really good fit for me for a variety of reasons. But I know that most of the time you're going to end up being like your one person art department. So I thought maybe today I'd talk a little bit about the different parts of the art department and different things that, how people in the art department frequently wear different hats depending on the size of the budget and the size of the show that you're working on. But in essence, the art department typically is all of the visuals for something. So it's everything from your production designer who decides what the sets are going to look like to the decorator who decorates those sets based on the director and the production designer's vision. Buyers who I get hired by the decorator, and my job is to find everything they want for that particular set. And then inside the art department also, or there are a couple coordinators, there's usually graphic designers, set designers, and the bigger the show, the more people fill those positions. I just did a couple days on a show that had something like 6 designers and 3 production design assistants and a decorator assistant and a whole bunch of different people because it was a huge Kevin Hart production. So they had a lot of money behind them and a lot of people, and it was like an 8-month long sort of a mini series they were working on. But then you'll work on other shows where the decorator does everything. They do everything from decorating the set to making the decisions to doing all the buying because the budget isn't big enough to allow more people to be in it. So it varies quite a bit, but most of the time I work as a buyer and I get hired by the decorator for a show, which means I go from show to show. I don't get hired by somebody that I don't work immediately for. So decorators in town tend to have particular buyers they really like to work with. Sometimes I work as the only buyer. Sometimes I work as a secondary buyer, sometimes as a primary, sometimes I day play, which just means going in and helping when they're kind of swamped. Maybe they have a big set coming up, maybe they have something that has a lot of involvement. So that's kind of an overview of what I end up doing. And Jessica has a group of pictures that we're going to go through in the course of this, because I want to talk to you about the collaboration, because of all the departments that I've come in contact with, the art department probably has more collaboration than anything else, because you don't always have, you wear a lot of different hats. And a production assistant, so if you were to go and like get a show, I'm gonna laugh because just a minute I'm about to be visited by a kitten. If you're working on a show that has production assistants in the art department, then they're also wearing multiple hats, where some PAs will end up spending a lot of time running errands and getting lunches and handling paperwork. In the art department, that same production assistant may be cutting and mounting photographs, putting pictures in frames. Their errand running may be picking up stuff that's been ordered in town and just need somebody to go by and pick it up. So that's kind of, you just have a lot of collaboration, and there's a whole lot of different tasks involved in the art department. So, does that help a little bit of an overview?
That does. Do you want to go a little more in depth to all the positions, or?
Yeah, sure. Here's kind of the hierarchy of the art department. You have the director, who hires a production designer who's going to design the visual look. The whole, they're going to come up with some set designs. They're going to come up with a whole look that they want to go for. They're probably going to part out a number of those drawings to set designers. And the set designer is literally somebody who just draws the sets. So if you've used Vectorworks or SketchUp or anything like that, there are whole jobs that are just drawings based on what somebody else has outlined. So you have the production designer. The production designer then turns around and hires the decorator. And the decorator's goal, of course, is to bring the vision of the director and the production designer to life. And then the decorator hires me. And then there's usually the decorator may very well hire a set decoration coordinator, which that person handles all the receipts for the buyers. They may kind of coordinate orders. So we may place an order and they'll make sure that it shows up on time. And, they may track things. They may, they'll do returns for us. They handle all our receipts, usually our time cards, that sort of thing, because most of the art department is on the road all the time. The decorator is often out walking sets or doing site visits. And then the buyers are on the road all the time too. So that production is the coordinator often ends up sort of just doing that, coordinate all the little bits, pieces, parts while everybody else is on the road. And in Atlanta, that truly means on the road. There may be production assistants that are hired, and they'll do all kinds of different things. The production design, the art department side of the team also has an art director who sort of holds the reins of all of it. The bigger the show, the more logistics the art director handles. The smaller the show, we kind of handle a lot of our own logistics. So it just kind of can vary. And as big as sets they're building. If you're working on something like Black Panther, they're doing enormous sets and you're spending a lot of time, getting construction materials in and getting stuff built. If you're working on an independent film and everything's being shot at locations, then you're just kind of juggling stuff and getting it to and from location, and you're not doing anything like building the set. So also on the art department side is you have your set designers. You usually have several graphic designers, and the graphics people, they're going to do your posters, their artwork, the things that have to be like cleared. So if you're, I've done several music shows, recording studio has posters up with musicians on it. They'll come up with like some ideas and, fake musicians' names and band names and stuff. All that stuff is done by the graphics department. That stuff, the legal side of that is usually handled by the graphics department. And those production assistants may do a lot of things like, get posters printed, send stuff to the big format printer that'll print your, 2x4 posters. They may get files and send them, they may get the files from the production team and get it sent out to a local printer. Or if you got signs to be made, they're going to go to a sign person. Then you've got a production assistant there who may be picking up those signs and making sure that those things get back onto property. There's a lot of kind of tracking and stuff that goes on the art department because a lot of it has to be cleared, which means the legal team has to say, yes, you can do it you can use that on screen. Sometimes it means we're getting a sign off from somebody. I got a sign off one time from literally talked to and got a sign off from Kathy Lee Gifford to put a picture of her up somewhere. And so you just have all this coordination piece on the legal side of stuff. I think so you're going to have your graphics designers, have your production, your actual set design team. You'll have some PAs. You actually have an art department coordinator. Some shows get an art department and a set deck coordinator. Some shows just get the art department coordinator, and then they also do the things the set deck does. Again, it's depending on, I mean, I've worked shows where one person did everything in the office. We didn't get a PA. We just got one coordinator. It's small independent films. Commercials don't get any of those extra people. If the buyer on a commercial may very well be the one that handles the graphics too. So it's just the team kind of grows and expands with how much visual is being done and how much is required out of the, you know, how much we have to do. I worked on a show that, in fact, Jessica has the pictures of that. I worked on one where I went into
let me know
daylight.
if you want me to cue
Yeah,
up anything.
there's one that has, it's the trade show, the high school, it's the tables. There's a bunch of tables set up with,
Oh, let me see if it'll let me just.
it's a career, you know,
All right.
so, scrolling down that one with the orange. Yep, those two. Okay. This was a career day at a high school. So to talk about collaboration between departments, what you see in the visuals as far as the posters and stuff, those were all given to me by the graphics team. So the graphics team gave me the posters. My job was to go and take those posters and get table linens and giveaways and everything that kind of matched it, because it needed to look like all these different colleges and career paths and everything had done their own tables. So there were like 30 some tables at this. And so all of the graphics that you see there were provided. And then I had to coordinate the colors and everything. I had to get everything. I also worked with the props team. Props team came back and bought us things like some games, like spin the wheel for prizes and things like that, which you don't see in these pictures. But you've got a production designer who drew out the plan in this gymnasium, because typically, you know, these career fests are handled in a gymnasium at a high school or something. Then you have the decorator who decided how she was going to, what the look she was going to have. She passed it on to me after graphics had done their decisions about, like, you know, this one, it's the local news channel and their colors are orange and blue. So when I went to get linens and everything, I tried to pull with those. When I wanted to get, you know, giveaway candies and pens for the tables, I was working with those colors together. And then I boxed each one of these up per booth and turned them over to the set dressers. And then the set dressers, who are also under set decoration, it's their job to put it all together, like on site, on location. So this was in a gymnasium at a high school location. And this was like 1 week of work. And because there were 30 of these to do, and we had to have 30 completely different looking ones. Well, when you talk about collaboration, that's where it comes from. You've got your production designer who drew it, your decorator who decided the look. You've got your designers, your graphics design team that came up with all the graphics, sent them to legal to make sure that we weren't in any trouble with any of the call signs or anything. They gave it to me then to go shop for all the colors. And then I boxed it all up. I had one box per booth and turned it over to the set dressing team for the following week, when I wasn't even there the following week. This was like 1 week of prep work I did. And this is the outcome of it. You know, every single one of these looked a little different. Some of them had signboards, some of them had drapes, some of them had different, you know, different colors on the tables. I spent a whole lot of time and money at Party City, and you know, I got to buy a lot of candy for this event. But that's the kind of coordination that the art department gets. So granted, if you had to do this and you were a small team, then it would have been very likely that I was the one who went out and did everything. You know, I you know, went and had the graphics printed, I picked them back up, I brought them back in. You know, it could be a smaller team that does this. This happened to be a really big series show, and it was a real big scene, and they gave her an extra week and an extra buyer for a week to take care of getting this all prepped for them.
John wants to know how long this booth took to do.
It probably took me all of about 30 minutes, and it probably took some dressers probably half hour to an hour to set up. It probably took a graphics design team. As much graphics as went into these, I suspect that every one of these probably had a good hour's worth of graphics in them because they all had posters and flyers. So there's a lot of labor intensive behind the scenes work to put out something that looks fairly simple. And again, I think there were 36 tables at this event.
And he wants to know about how long it took to do all the tables together.
I don't know. I think they had 2 days to dress the set because I wasn't there the week they dressed it.
How long did it take you to shop for it, though?
Oh, I worked 1 week on getting everything together. So, basically 4 10-hour days of being out on the road, 10 or 12-hour
Okay.
days. Yeah, because I couldn't go one place to buy everything because then it
Mhm.
starts all looking the same. So, I shopped at Hobby Lobby and Michael's and Party City. And, I ordered all the linens online through one of our vendors in town that does a lot of linen rentals for me. But it was just like one of these and one of those and 3 blue and 4 orange. Because you had to make them all look completely different. Like if you look at the other one that's burgundy, you can see how they have a whole, it's got, the candies and all the background stuff is
Mhm.
burgundy and black. The pipe and drape behind, I think they use solid blue for the whole school to make it, because pipe and drape, it's the easiest thing to do all one color. But you can see that each little booth had a whole different look to it. And, basically they all had an 8-foot table and about 4 chairs behind it. And that's each one of them was bare bones like that. But the idea was to make it look like 36 different organizations, colleges, recruiters had done these booths up.
Yeah, I see the police booth in the background there.
Yep. Yeah, some of it was career things, some of it was, trade colleges. This was a high school recruitment, college and job recruitment place. So, and then you can see all the graphics behind, they're all printed in blue up on the wall behind there. Those were all done by the graphics team also. This was a gymnasium with blank white walls when we walked in.
Nice. Nathan would like to know what happens when you can't find an item. Or-
That's a pretty often thing that happens. It kind of varies on who I'm working for. If I have something really specific someone wants, um, I am kind of known in town as the queen of finding the weird stuff. Um, I have lots and lots of people I reach out to and start I call it going down the rabbit hole. So, because I start making phone calls, like, I don't know if you have this or not, but if you don't have it, who do you think I can get it from? There have been times when it's time and money. If I need it this week and I can't get it shipped and it's not in town somewhere, I will take back to the decorator options. And we needed at short notice some draperies one time, and they needed to be 12 foot, 144 length, which is pretty darn hard to find off the shelf. And I ended up finding some on Marketplace because we wanted something in like dark jewel tone colors, and I kept finding pastels and ivory and black and white. And so I found somebody on Marketplace that was selling these jewel tone plaid drapes, and they were the length we needed. And she had a whole pile of them for like $200. And I took what I found in town that was new, and then I took those to the decorator as well, the information about it. And I said, this is not exactly what you thought you were looking for, but what do you think of this as an option? And she actually ended up, at first she said no, and then she thought a moment, and she thought, wait a minute, yeah, I think it'll work. And we bought them. We bought the whole stack for like $200. They hung them up. They were absolutely perfect in colors. They were for the bedroom of Aretha Franklin's childhood home when she went back to see her family. So it just kind of had to go with anyway, it had to go with that vibe. And it was pretty cool that actually I got pictures of it quite a bit afterwards that, like, this is what the set looked like on scene. Like, wow, okay. But there are times you just can't. I can't get it fast enough. Or it's way out of budget. Some decorators will have an absolute temper tantrum because they can't find what they want. But if you can't find it, you can't find it. And most decorators, they know we work under such a tight timeline that sometimes you just can't. I mean, if we need it by Friday, sometimes I can't even get it going from Amazon in that length of time. So you just do what you can sometimes.
You said a little bit and hinting about PAs are different in art than they are in the rest of the production.
Yes.
Oh,
Um, to me, because I did a whole year as a PA, and a lot of people say like, why would you work a whole year as a PA? And it's because I was learning so darn much, and because PAs in the art department get to do a lot of other things. So a PA in set deck may often help wrangle receipts, get receipts taped down, follow up, track down a receipt that we didn't get, do a return, sort of those tasks like that. Yeah, they do a lot of the running like every other PA does, but it tends to be more directly involved with the set dressing and the actual sets. So we have had PAs, a lot of times they're the ones who put our pictures in frames for us. We'll print out a lot of pictures that, like the family frames, your family photos that sit on people's desks and stuff. We'll print out all those, supply a whole stack of used frames. I buy a lot of them from Goodwill and all the thrift stores in town, turn them over to PA, who then takes the different pictures and matches them up to frames and puts them in frames. And then they'll turn them over to the set dressing department to get them dressed onto set. So PA may do a lot of that sort of thing. If you are a PA in the actual art department on the design and graphics side, PAs may get in and adjust graphics. They're not necessarily the ones designing it because that is a design job, but they may be the ones to go in and say, oh, okay, we need to fix the lettering on this page, or we need to the minor stuff. And they may also be the ones that kind of there's a I gave you one picture that's banners. That's a graphics,
yes.
the actual graphics. There it is. Yep. Okay. In this particular case,
Oh,
yep. This is the graphics designer designed this. These were banners that we were making for the Descendants movie Rise of Red, which is finally coming out in July. um, anyway, the graphics designer did this, and then I had to get a hold of several different flag companies in town and get some quotes about what it would cost to have this done. I turned that information over to the graphics team because in this particular show, we had a lot of graphics and we had a team that handled it. So I got pricing. I turned several names and local vendors over. They got the designs done. The PA was the one who, the graphics designer sent these approved drawings to the printer, that was actually printing the banners. And then the PA was the one who took them the rods to put them on and then brought them back when they were finished and kind of did the go-between. And then once they got back, they were the ones that got them over to the set dressers so they could get hung up in the courtyard on set. So the PAs tend to do, yeah, they're doing running and stuff, but they're doing a lot more hands-on that is actually more involved with the actual work we do. It's not unusual for the PAs to be handling a lot of things like, making sure the posters that we ordered came in. The PAs are the ones that, because we're not in the office all the time, we may order things. And on big shows, I've had big whiteboards up before where you sit there and write on the whiteboard what you ordered and when it's due in and who it's ordered from. And then the PAs go get the mail each day and match it up to those things. So they're like, oh, these banners were ordered by Tanya from this vendor in town and they go to this set. And, if there were additional instructions like, please make sure the rods go to, please make sure the rods get to them also, because there's pieces of things and I'm not in the office. Most of the time I'm on the road 12 hours of my day. So I'm not in the office to see that it got arrived, put the things together and get them to the dressers. And the PAs do a lot of that sort of stuff. So they start a PA in the art department. By the time they've been there a few months, they're going to know the vendors. They've probably talked to most of the vendors at some point in time, either to make sure that they got an invoice from them or make sure they got a check dropped off to them. So by the time I'd worked a year as a PA for Tyler Perry Studios, I knew all of the vendors in town. I knew all the prop houses in town. I knew all of the billing process so that when I became a buyer, I already understood the financial side that goes on behind the scenes, how the checks get cut and who cuts them, and how to make a request, and what accounting departments typically like to see on a request. So there's a real learning. You're just involved and you're enmeshed in the whole thing, because there's so many people that aren't in the office on a daily basis that the PAs and the coordinators really have to have their fingers on the pulse of everything going on.
Edward has a good question about, do you order off Amazon a lot?
Yes, but reluctantly. Part of the film incentive, the tax incentives that go on in Georgia, is that we are to buy as often as possible from Georgia. And because, they grant the show some tax breaks, and the show in turn is supposed to, like, include Georgia's economy and what they're doing. I guess that's the best way to put it. And so I do order off of Amazon, but I try to get what I can in town. I fall back on Amazon for the stuff that I just need now. It's not important. It's not big pieces. We don't usually have enough time to order things like furniture. It takes too long to get it in for it to be even of any use on the show. But Amazon is where I do things like, order string lights and odds and ends of junk. It's mostly junk ordering. Amazon is very confused. Amazon does that little, like, we have suggestions for you today. My suggestions that it gives me on any given day are very strange, because it cannot figure out what the hell I'm doing most of the time. But I really try to use my local vendors as much as possible. I like to support my local people, and I have a lot of small vendors who just, they go out of their way to help me get what I want. And when you get that kind of service from local people, I just much rather do that than order from Amazon. But yeah, we order from Amazon. It's easy to do returns. It's easy to get orders, but it's mostly the stuff that I can't just stop and pick up somewhere in the course of my day.
I think let's get into if they want to get into art department and the
Okay.
networking and all that kind of stuff, and
Okay.
then we can deal with some of their other questions too.
Okay.
They've
Well,
asked a lot.
yeah, that's okay. In the art department, probably more so than anybody else, because of the collaboration level of it, the networking becomes really, really important. And it's not just networking to get the jobs, it's networking to work with your vendors, just put your face in front of people so they know who you are. The way I got the position with Tyler Perry Studios is I did a workshop in town. And that workshop, I got to talking to the workshop instructor. The workshop instructor actually ended up being the AD for Tyler Perry. And when the art department there, the set deck department said, we need a new PA, she put my resume in front of them and said, I think this is the person you want. And they respected her so much that they didn't even want to interview me. We played phone tag for like 2 days, and I was in a panic that they would find somebody else before I could, meet up with them. I finally got a chance to talk to the buyer who was handling the arrangements of talking to me. And I said, I'll just drive to interview, just tell me where to meet. And she goes, oh no, she said, Alicia told me that you're what we need, and that's all we need to know about. So that was just a matter of me making sure that every time I walked into Alicia's workshop that I, put my best foot forward. And she just flat out, they took her word for it because they respected her so much. And I have found since then, it's like, we've been out of work for over 6 months, almost a year now with the strikes. So during this whole stretch, I have still stopped and seen my vendors. I've had to buy birthday presents at some smaller stores. So I go to those stores, I make sure I say hello. I make sure that I just check in with them, tell them I'm still I'm not working right now, but I'm still in the industry. And that's been really important, because when I walked into one shop that had moved from one place to the other during the last 6 months, and they were so happy to see me in there. And, they asked me like, well, let us know what show you're back to, they offer up discounts to me. It's all that sort of stuff. So it's not just the people that you want to work with, it's also the people that you want to use to do your job. There'll be events here in town where they've invited buyers and decorators, and production designers. There's a marketplace here that is, it's called America's Mart, and it's basically where the buyers for retail stores, go to like order the furniture for the store and stuff. They wanted to court the film industry, and they hadn't seen anybody for 6 months because of the strike. So they held a little like 4-hour long event at the America's Mart one day, and they invited buyers, production designers, and decorators. And I went to that event for the sheer purpose of wandering around and meeting decorators I hadn't worked with before, people whose names I recognize, people who've seen my name on list. And it's just, that's one of the reasons I will go and day play when I work. I know people who don't like to day play. They're like, I don't want to go do something for 1 or 2 days. Well, I did
Excuse me, Miss Webb.
I did a show for 2 days, and it was great because I got to meet a production designer I hadn't seen for like 4 years. I got to meet a decorator who I really want to work with, who I had not actually had the chance to work with yet. And I got my name in front of a bunch of people that just got a chance to see my work ethic for 2 days that hopefully will pan out for somebody calling me when they need another buyer or they need somebody for their department. So I keep a really positive online presence. My Facebook page, I belong to multiple groups that are art department related here in town, a group of buyers, a group of coordinators. And when people ask questions like, does anybody know where I can find this item? I'm one of the first people who reach out and say, yeah, I got a guy that can do that for you. Can I private message you and tell you my contact person's name? Because I don't like to put my contact people just out in the world. They do me a lot of favors, and I don't want somebody abusing them. But I'll message them separately and say, yeah, this guy has helped me do that before, or this shop can make that happen for you. And I'm one of the first people to do that, and that's why I have a reputation in town of being of knowing people. There's somebody who jokes all the time and said, if they throw that question out there, they know Tanya's going to say, I got a guy. That's like, yeah, because I've nurtured those relationships outside of my job.
Maya actually wants to know what drew you to the art department.
Jessica was there for that one.
I was.
I actually thought I wanted to do documentary work. I wanted to take my journalism degree, which I wasn't using, and work on documentaries, which was what I thought would be a natural combination of a film degree and a journalism degree. And I still really enjoy the documentary world. I'd be more than happy to work it. But when we got to the course part of production design and art directing and just the whole art department, I realized that there were a lot of jobs. And at that point in time, I didn't know buyer was even a thing, but there were a lot of jobs. I'm very visual. So it was a really good place for me to bring stuff to life. I have a really eclectic work history, and I've done international travel and a lot of other things. So when somebody says, can you do a hospital room? It's like, yeah, I spent about 10 years working in the hospitals. I can do an ER, trust me. I've done a morgue. I've done a operating room setup. It was a real challenge. And it also, I enjoy the research side of journalism a lot. And there is a real research component to what we do in the art department. When I was working on Aretha's series, and also when I was working on MLK series, both of those are the Genius series for National Geographic. Both of those had very specific time spans that we had to make sure that we got it right. And I was working on the Harlem bookstore on and the MLK show, and you didn't want to. We were getting sign-offs to have particular titles of books displayed that would have come out during those years that the bookstore was being presented. So it made a difference. It made a difference that you don't want to put a book out that wasn't published for 10 years after that time. And I enjoy the research aspect. And there are times when I don't know anything about what they've asked me to do. I had to find parts to an espresso machine once. I know nothing about espresso machines. So I took pictures of the parts I needed. I called up a guy that was a mobile servicer of espresso machines for businesses. And I told him what I needed. I shot him a couple of pictures. He called me back and he said, yeah. And he explained to me what I was asking for, what the part was for. And he said he had a couple used ones on his truck. And what they do? And I said, well, actually, they'd be preferable to new ones. And so he sold me some used components. I met him where he was servicing somebody's espresso machine, and I bought used components out of his truck. But I find that the great thing about if you are innately curious, which I am, the art department also let me exercise that curiosity. It lets me be creative, and I didn't realize I was creative as creative as I can be. I mean, it kind of nurtures that side of me, and it forces me to learn something all the time. It just ended up being a really good fit. I love the visual side of it. I love taking an empty box and making it a world, because we do start with this big empty box, whether or not it's a location that's been stripped out of all the homeowners' furniture and we're shooting in their house, or it's a set that's being built from scratch. There's something about bringing it to life, and it's not just putting in the big pieces, it's putting in what we call the life layer, which is, let's say you're doing a living room. It's not just the furniture in the room, but like I can look at my living room table right now, and my coffee table is covered with the stuff that gets dropped on a coffee table. That's the life layer. And to take the character and bring those components and put them out there. So you bring it's like it becomes the set becomes a character as much as the actual actors do. And that's just what I ended up loving about it.
That actually bridges in well to a question Nathan asked about, do you ever have to get items from an actor to put into the sets?
We do, but I'm usually not the one to do that. That usually comes from, we have people we'll coordinate with. So you'll get people who are sort of the handlers for that team. It is very, very often we will, if we've got a family and we need family pictures, we actually will they'll ask us to bring in, like, partially dress a set. Like, would they know the whole set's not done yet, but can we please dress a wall? And, maybe we have to put up a Christmas tree so they can do Christmas pictures. Or maybe we need to get some school books because they want to do first day of school pictures or things like that. And they'll take the talent and they'll coordinate with whoever wrangles the talent, and they'll coordinate with those, and they'll take our stuff that we've provided and they'll do a photo shoot, and then they'll bring those pictures back to us, and then those pictures become the printouts that we do to like family pictures, and graduation photos and all the stuff that becomes part of people's lives. Police station, if you've got you'll get pictures of a lot of, even the background actors will have pictures taken because you need you want the roster pictures on the wall, maybe. We've done, so it's not unusual. Photos are a really big thing that we end up doing. That's what we usually end up getting from talent or photo shoots. And then those photos are brought to us so that we can do whatever we need to do with them.
How long approximately does this all take to prep and get together?
Sometimes we have 24 to 48 hours. Sometimes we have 2 weeks. So
And 2 weeks is pretty much the average for the
no,
longer
I would
stuff,
say
or?
less than a week is probably the average.
All right.
Yeah. And as far as, you mean for that specific kind of thing?
For in general, what you're doing.
Oh, in general, if it's a big set, we could have as much as 30 days if it's being constructed. Most of the time, we kind of know what's coming up, and you're probably working a couple weeks ahead on any given part. And if I'm doing my job correctly, if everything, not just me doing my job, but if our department is doing our job correctly, we should be done and moved on to the next set at least 2 to 3 days before talent ever walks on set. So whether or not that took 2 weeks to prep or 4 weeks to prep varies. If you look at something like the pictures of the mood boards that you have,
Yes.
that was several months prop. Okay, so
These
these are,
ones.
yeah, those there. So I've got several, these mood boards were given to me. They had shopped the furniture. This is for The Gifted, which was a Fox TV Marvel spinoff show. these mood boards kind of developed over the course of, they had like 30 days to prep these sets. The sets were being built. They were kind of brownstone looking apartments. I was provided these boards, which had the colors that they decided on, the furniture that was going in, and my job was to go and do the fill, lamps, rugs, linens, kitchen items. This decorator selected like the dinnerware, and I had to go pick up stuff to go on the shelves. Each character had a real specific color palette and vibe. And so these were the boards I was given. I probably worked 2 weeks on shopping for stuff to go onto these sets. So I think there's like 3 boards, and then there's a couple pictures of the actual rooms when they were done. But you can see that I've got wallpaper samples. That's the bedding that they chose. Just a close up of the wallpaper samples, and then scroll up just a little.
Might be down.
Huh?
Might be down the other way.
Maybe. There it is. That one. Yep, that's one of them. So this is what ends up happening. The bedding was, in fact, that's the bedding that was in the other picture. The bedding was chosen. My job, and the furniture was chosen, and my job was to, I think she got the drapers too. My job was to find, I found lamps and a side chair and the other stuff that they kind of needed to fill. And, she had picked out the dinnerware that matched the colors of the actor. When you work on Marvel and Disney, the great thing about it is you know specifically you really know what the character looks like, what colors are associated with it. With Disney, it's all about marketing. So they've all decided in advance what costumes somebody's wearing and what colors they are. And, so you make sure that, the environment matches that. And so it's kind of fun because you know what you're working with. Some shows you don't get that much background, but this decorator on The Gifted was great about providing the real basis and then just turning me loose to go get the rest of the stuff.
Edward wants to know if you do mood boards for documentaries too. Have you even worked on any documentaries?
I have not worked on any documentaries since, I've worked on commercials. There's no mood board for commercials. Most of the time the mood boards come in if you have multiple characters. And if you're like on the Aretha and the MLK series, there was very distinct looks to each time span. So we had, there were boards done up in those cases. And it has a lot to do with which decorator you're working with. This particular decorator that had this is Christy, and Christy is also very visual. I love working with her. She does a lot of texture. She does a lot of real unique colors, and she likes to provide all the bases, and she likes to turn the buyers loose to see what we can come up with to fill. And she's really fun to work with because I get to stretch my wings a little when I work with her. But not all shows, sometimes all I get are the basics. I'll get what furniture they chose and what colors they're painting the walls. And then I'm scrambling to figure out, well, who is this character? And, what kind of stuff would they have? And, so it has a lot to do with, it kind of trickles down from the top. How much does the director care? How much did they request of the production designer? How specific is the production designer, and how involved in that world, making that world as your decorator? So there are certain decorators I love to work with because they, like Christy, she likes to develop a whole world around a character.
That actually leads into one of my questions that I had for you. A lot of our students are, especially when they're earlier in the program, are going to be a crew of one.
Right. How
can they go about doing some art in their own films right now, and when they get out, when they only have that crew of one?
Okay. If you have, and I've been the crew of one on independent movies. I mean, just, there might be a decorator, but I get turned loose for a whole lot of the stuff. I find that the easiest way is to get your background going first. Like, what basic stuff is going to be in this set? If it is this bedroom set, it's a good one to talk about. If it is this bedroom set, you may already know what furniture they want to see in it. Sometimes the director has a very distinct idea that he wants to be able to shoot through the 4 posters of a 4-poster bed. Or they want a screened. I mean, they may have some camera requests about how they want things to look. And so I always start with the things that somebody higher up from me really wants to see in that space. And and I try to narrow people down about what colors we're after and things like that, and find out what kind of budget. That's a big question to ask, is how much money can I spend on this? And it may be a very small amount, it may be a big amount.
And
Whether or
what's
not
like an average budget running for you? Big
um
versus small?
it kind of varies. That's kind of weird because it varies per set.
Mm,
Like, if I'm doing something like I had to do kiosk for a mall, and I was
yeah.
given um, like $500 per kiosk to spend.
Okay.
So it meant that some kiosk, if I found out that one kiosk was coming in at 300, I might move to some of that 200 to something that was coming in more. So you just kind of, that kind of, and then sometimes it's a matter of the set cost a whole lot, so there's only so much that we can purchase to put into it, or we're not going to purchase, we want to rent. And there are times when you have a rental agreement with a prop house that independent films and commercials do this a lot, where they have a flat amount. They've agreed to pay the prop house X amount of money for whatever we might need for those 3 days. And that's kind of, you just, if you're grabbing expensive things, the prop house is going to tell you you're exceeding your amount. That's kind of what they're supposed to do. But most of the time you've got some idea about what you're allowed to spend for that particular space. So it's kind of hard to say a specific budget, because obviously a Marvel show is going to give you thousands and thousands of dollars to do something with, but then they may on another set give you 500 because you don't, you're just trying to buy, or you're trying to take care of, you're doing an alley, and the only thing you have to do is rent a dumpster and put some trash out on the ground. So that may not have a lot of money involved with it, where somebody else may be spending a lot of money in that same space doing things like covering the walls and getting rid of, a billboard that's there by putting up a new graphic, which might take $3,500, but that's not part of your problem to deal with. Um, the the morgue wall, which I know is, I think, one of the pictures I gave you also.
Yes, somewhere. I think it was higher up.
Yeah, there it is. It's the top two. Yeah, that's the actual on-set use of it. And here's, those two are the morgue itself. Okay. So this morgue, this is all my doing. That morgue wall is, the drawers and the doors and all that. That had a budget of about, I want to say $35,000 for just the wall, mind you. Okay, ignore the rest of the stuff, just the wall. $35,000 to do that wall. It took me multiple phone calls and several days to find somebody who could do that for me. And his budget came in, he quoted me out at like 25,000. So we were saving like $10,000 on over what they thought it was. This is Tyler Perry set. So there's about $10,000. So we ended up taking that $10,000 and buying $10,000 more stuff from that same vendor, because we got to do more for our money than we thought we would. And then I would say that the rest of the set probably had another $10,000 worth of purchase, not counting the construction budget to put the cabinets in and build the wall and all of that stuff. So I would say this set was easily 60 to 75,000.
Was this for a show or a movie?
Yeah, it was for a series. It was done
Okay,
for
so
one of Tyler Perry's series. And then you can actually see it on the screenshot I did further down. I just shot that. That's where it got used. One, Tyler Perry, he tends to build permanent ongoing sets because they'll use them over and over again for multiple shows. So he does a lot of series, and so he builds almost everything. He rents very little, because this whole set will get redressed to be a morgue at a different hospital. This was the police station morgue specifically. So it just varies. But this was easily, not counting the construction budget, this was easily a $75,000 set plus construction cost. So just the stuff that was purchased to go into this empty box.
we're coming up on 8 o'clock.
Okay.
So I'm gonna give it just a good wrap-up question, and then
Okay.
if anybody needs to run out, then they're good to go.
Yeah, and then I can answer whatever questions anybody wants
Questions.
to say.
Yep.
Yeah.
Um, if somebody is wanting to get started in the art department, what kind of steps should they be taking? Internships while they're in school? Should they find a mentor? What should
But
they be doing?
mentor is a big thing. Um, throw yourself into it because um, learn all the different little pieces of it, because at any art department, um, the size of the production will make a difference in how many people are involved with it. If you, the people that you know in art departments, or reach out to people that are working on shows, it's pretty impossible for somebody to like take you onto set, because there's always 19 security issues involved, including signing non-disclosure agreements. But I meet up with a lot of post students and new people moving into Atlanta, and I go just sit and talk to them. I'll take them out to the prop houses in town. So if you're somewhere that there are prop houses are a really good place to get to know the owners of the prop houses and the people that like run, like the people who work at the warehouse team. Um, they're more than happy to teach you about how they're great about teaching like how rentals work and walking you through the place. There's not a prop house out there that cares whether or not I bring a stranger through and drag them through the prop house, because they know that eventually that person, if they get involved, is going to come to them for rentals. So we have 3 or 4 prop houses in town that hire film people whenever they get bogged down. So if they've got to move stuff on a weekend, or they have to organize, they'll hire some people for organizing for a week, and typically they pay them pretty good to do it. And it's a really good way to meet the people, because not only do you meet the people who work at the prop house, but you meet the buyers and the decorators, because they're coming through all the time. And you meet, when somebody does a commercial, they do all of it. They may be the decorator and the buyer and kind of be their own coordinator. They're doing all those pieces of it. Commercials rarely have more than 2 or 3 people making up the art department. And those people are really great because they have all these different pieces of it they do. If you know people that work as coordinators, make sure they have your resume, because the coordinators are the ones that bring in PAs, and they're also the ones that gather up resumes when they're getting ready to, the production designer often is, the one who says, okay, we're going to need a couple more graphics people this week. They hired that school thing I did. They actually brought in 2 more graphics designers that week just to sit there and do the graphics for that career fair. So there's good chances of getting in and kind of helping out, be ready to take a last minute thing and work 2 days in a week, and work your butt off and keep a really super positive attitude, because if you do that, they're going to ask you to come back again, especially if you're willing to come in the middle of the week, help dig out for 2 or 3 days when they're swamped with something, and cheerfully go about your way, and then they'll pull you back. It is such a collaborative department that it makes a big difference if you can work as a team. So anybody who's coming into the Atlanta area, you are more than welcome to give me a call. I will happily take you around to a couple of the prop houses, give you an overview of what's going on in town, and that sort of thing. But I really encourage people who want to work in the art department to get a PA job in the art department, because get your resume in front of as many the production designers and the coordinators. The coordinators specifically, the set deck and the art department coordinators are the ones that usually are the ones that are putting resumes. They're kind of going through the resumes and getting them in front of whoever wants to make the hiring decision. And the art department coordinator does make hiring decisions when it comes to PAs. So those people are really, really good to know. And it's really good to you can, if there's a particular show that you want to talk to the coordinator, a lot of time I can find out who that coordinator is. And, because the union will put out who's hired for a specific show once it's crewed up. And so I can usually find coordinators, the show itself would be crewed, but sometimes you can, get a hold of that coordinator. And if they have a chance, if, I can tell you whether or not somebody that's willing to sit and talk to you. And that's where networking becomes really important.
Multiple multiple people asked, what's been your favorite thing to work on? And Dre specifically wants to know what's been your favorite Tyler Perry thing.
Oh, okay. I'll get to the favorite Tyler Perry thing in a moment. My favorite thing to work on, um, two things, and for different reasons. I worked on an independent film called Queen Bees, very small crew, small movie. It was somebody's passion project. But the cool thing is the talent. The talent was James Caan on one of the last things he did before he passed away, Anne Margaret, Jane Curtin, Ellen Burstyn, Margaret, and Margaret. So you have all these. It had to do with Ellen Burstyn was in a put in a retirement home because she'd had a fire in her house, and when her house was being done, her son put her in this retirement home, and it's all about. It's just as if you go to high school and you got to be the new student. She was the new person, and it just had to do about building new relationships and meeting people and establishing new friendships. But the greatest thing about it is that rarely do I ever get to see the talent. I mean, usually I am well on my way to the next set. In this particular show, because it was such a small team, I actually got to watch these people work. People who have been actors for 50, 60 years of their life work. And you don't get that option very often. It was just really, really special to see those people. And they were just sweet as can be and great to work with. And I was really pleased about that. And then the other thing that I worked on that was fabulous is the Descendants 4 movie, which will come out as Rise of Red. And on Disney Plus, it'll be out, I think, July 12th. And that was so much fun. For 8 months, I lived in the world of Cinderella, Alice in Wonderland, the Mad Hatter, and Queen of Hearts. And so everything we did was all about shape and color and texture. I got to buy giant pieces of antique furniture that had been painted crazy colors. I bought weird stuff to put into the Mad Hatter's lab. I don't know. It
And
was
your
so
person
much
on that
fun.
was named Jessica.
Huh?
Your person on that was named Jessica, and you
Yes.
started texting me if I wanted to buy like flowers or something. And I'm like, what silk flowers are you talking about?
Yeah, yeah, or just type Jessica and get the wrong person. But it was just so much fun to work on because I got turned loose to do so much of what I did. And it was all about having fun with it. And, how much fun can you have doing the Mad Hatters? And those pictures, I don't have access to show them yet because it hasn't been released. And I release things when, now Tyler Perry, it's not as much the show that I worked on for Tyler Perry, it's the things that I did.
Mm.
And Jessica, the grocery store.
Yes.
Okay. I did this grocery store and it is enormous. If you look through the pictures of it, I had to buy all the shelving. I had to buy all of the cooler units. I had been all the containers that went into all the, so we started with all these empty shelves. I did a grocery store and a pharmacy. And that was the most fun to do because it was such an enormous task. I knew nothing about grocery store shelving until I started this. Um, these There was a scene where they were in the uh, department with all the fruits and vegetables and produce, and they wanted to have this conversation in front of one of the coolers. And this is August, mind you, and these coolers are non-functioning because even if they did have functioning compressors, they're going to be unplugged for, because you can't have all that noise on camera. So we wanted these containers of fresh fruit, and I went through all kinds of different ways. What could I put in them? What would look okay? And I pulled into Five Below one day, and they had a giant box out front of pool noodles. And in that box of pool noodles were yellow, green, pink, and pale orange. And I looked at them, I thought, wait a minute. Pineapple, watermelon, honeydew, cantaloupe. Yeah, we can do this. So I bought pool noodles. We cut the pool noodles up. We put them into these containers, and I ordered these from Amazon. This was an Amazon purchase. And I ordered them in kind of the milky white color, so they wouldn't be like real obvious that they weren't real pieces of fruit. And so we filled them all. The PA was sitting down there labeling these with your produce labels, like, your barcodes. And Mr. Perry came through this particular set, and she said he walked over. She called me up and she said, "You have to tell you what just happened." I said, "Okay." She said, "Mr. Perry walked through the set." And I was like, "Okay, he does know that we're only like just beginning to get this dressed. They said, yeah, but he went over to where this fresh fruit was, because this was a whole scene that was supposed to be in front of it. And he pulls out one of the containers, pops the top off, looks inside, puts the top back on, and puts it back on the shelf. Pulled out one of the other containers, popped the top off, looked at it, puts it back, turns around to the PA, points to the containers and says, genius. That's genius. And she called me. She says, I just had to let you know that your idea has been declared genius by Mr. Perry. But I was really proud of that grocery store. And this is, when you talk collaborative effort, this is the shelving I got in. This is what I got purchased. This was a major purchase. This is, I would say easily $40,000 worth of shelving between the pharmacy and the grocery store. I don't even want to think about what the budget was for this. We were just rolling money out the door.
Is that grocery store too? Yeah.
Yeah, that's grocery store too. I don't have any of the pharmacy in there. And then that's the long wall, just to show you the length of the aisles. I mean, it was a huge space. It's not just one aisle. It's a giant space. And I was just really proud of it because it was a major chunk of work. And then your graphics team designs labels to put on stuff. So we were buying the most generic toilet paper and boxes and things, and then they were slapping new labels on them. We bought a lot of empty containers that were then dressed into we bought milk jugs and ice cream containers, all kinds of stuff like that that had cleared label, that legally were okay for us to display. We made our own produce labels and stuff that had to, so all of that was done by graphics. All of that was printed out, turned over to the PAs. The PAs spent tons of time in this set labeling stuff. And we brought another buyer in for the sole purpose of buying large quantities to fill the shelves with. So, she was out at, Costco buying a pallet of toilet paper. So this is when it all comes together, and when you have a huge collaborative effort, because one person cannot do a set like this. And so it's the things that I did. It's not that the show's much on Tyler Perry, it's just that I was the one. There were 3 buyers on almost all the shows, and I was the one that did these big pieces. The big pieces ended up on my plate most of the time. And every bit of it was a learning experience. I bought checkout counters, like conveyor belt checkout counters and grocery carts. And I have a vendor in town that sells all that stuff used who did great by me. They sold me these beautiful refrigerator cases that all needed compressors replaced for a fraction of what it would have cost me to buy them otherwise. So, yeah.
I think at this point we can turn it over to anybody who has any last questions.
Okay.
If you want to raise your hand or put it in the chat.
And did I cover the things that you wanted me to cover?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was clearing it off the list as we were going.
Okay. Thank you. And Jessica, give your students, you're welcome to give your students my email address and my cell phone number.
I was going to say, if you want to put that in the chat, or you have it, if not, I can go look for it.
Oh, I can, I'll just, you may just read it off?
Yeah.
Okay.
That would work.
Yeah, my email address is Tanya, Tanya, Webb, Webb, film, FILM. So it's Tanya Webb Film at Gmail. And my cell phone is 407-346-2461.
And I'm putting those in the chat too.
Okay. Yeah, and
make sure that number is correct. 407-346-2461.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
she's just saved in as Tanya, so I mean.
and Jessica will tell you that she knows that I talk to people constantly. I mean, it's not unusual for me to take people out, as long as I'm not on a show, and hopefully they'll get all this contract stuff resolved and I can start working again soon. But I'll meet people, I'll go have coffee with people, I'll take you to the prop houses. I love meeting people interested in the art department, because you don't get a lot of information about the art department. So, and we didn't get that much information about the art department either. So I didn't even know buyer was a thing, and then I felt like, oh, you mean there's a job that goes around and buys all this stuff? Yeah.
Which is what we did on all that stuff anyways and
Yeah.
had a great time with it.
Yeah, but you didn't realize there was a whole job devoted to that. And a lot of people think I spend all my time at like Macy's and Bloomingdale's. Like, no, no, no. I do curbside pickup for those places. I spend my time face to face in dirty warehouses talking to people about buying, you know, 10 coolers for a grocery store, used pharmacy shelving. We bought at a Hallmark store that's going out of business one time, and that's what most of their shelving got used in the pharmacy because they had some really nice, like, we needed a card rack, and then we bought card racks from them. And so I do a lot of shopping on Marketplace. I do a lot of shopping on less on Craigslist these days because I think everybody's kind of leaned toward Marketplace more. Um, I have bought more prison toilets used than anybody cares to count. I have done jail cell after jail cell because for some reason so many shows want to have somebody stuck in a jail cell. So yes, I bought used prison toilets. I also know where to buy the parts for used prison toilets. But it's a really fun department, and I guess you might come into it thinking it's all the pretty stuff, but the fun stuff, the really fun stuff is things like this grocery store, the morgue, the Mad Hatter. Yeah, all of that
Yes.
stuff is so much fun.
Oh, I know you had wanted to talk about this
Oh,
picture.
yeah, I
Kind of
just
forgot
want to
about
talk. Yeah, this is just a matter of tell you when we say collaborative effort, this is collaboration at its best. Where this arrow comes down and points to the little trailer at the bottom, it says 33 foot. We had to get a trailer that has already been delivered to a location that needed to be brought onto set, onto the sound stage to continue shooting. So they shot it on location, they brought it back to the sound stage, and then they had to. So here are all the departments involved in this. I was involved with coordinating the driver to. I was working as art department coordinator for a couple days for the show, so I had to get the driver cleared to come on to the sound stage and give them directions which gate to come through. Then the driver was coordinated with their office on the day they needed to pick up the trailer and where they needed to move it from and needed to move it into the sound stage. Then the set dressing team needed to be there and available to make sure that it was positioned correctly with 33 feet between where it was and the rest of the set because they didn't want to interfere with everything being shot on the other part of the set. And then once this trailer got there, then it was redressed onto this set for the exterior shots. And they did, actually interior and exterior. So they had to redress this. They had to do new graphics. So graphics had to get involved with it. So it's the set dressing team and the graphics team. Obviously, someone in production, somebody on the design team drew this. So the production designer came up with the idea. The decorator knew how many desks and everything needed to go in the trailer. I was coordinating the pieces to get it moved and delivered. The set dressers had to go in and get it dressed. The graphics designers did graphics. The PAs got everything cut out and bundled up and taken over there. And so this is, and then the end result is you have this trailer that was shot outside for part of it and then brought inside to do all the interior shots. And that's just, when I say it's a collaborative effort, this was all done. This was all arranged in one afternoon.
wow.
So it's just, there's a press behind it to get it done. The dessert that's there.
Yeah.
Okay. We wanted desserts for a reception scene on the Rise of Red. So these are custom made fake desserts because again, we were going to shoot outside and nothing was going to stay looking very fresh for a 12-hour shoot day. And custom made desserts can be as much as $100 a piece. I found somebody on Etsy who did these desserts and I called her, I reached out to her and said, are you willing to do some custom ones? Because you have what we want. I just want different colors. We worked out a deal with her. She sent me samples. These were the samples she sent me. We agreed that these were great. And then she did like 20 of each for us. And she did it on a short time span and something that she'd never done before. I reached out and said, how would you like to do custom desserts? And she said, I'm not quite sure how this will work. So we talked it over. She sent us 2 samples. We bought 20 of each. And I made a small independent business owner very happy with that purchase. The next one down,
Kitchen.
yeah, this is the staff kitchen of the White House at Tyler Perry Studios. So
And I think you
production
had
design
another.
team, yeah, production design team and the construction team put all this together. I bought all of the pots and everything. And then this was during COVID, so I had to provide everything to dress this set at a time when I couldn't come and go from the set. All I could do was drop everything off at the door. So it was things like the rubber gloves over the edge of, this is the life layer you add. The rubber gloves are the edge of the counter, the knives laying out on the table, the shop lists that are stuck up on the stainless steel, the spices over the top of the stove. So all of those pieces I had to buy, package together and drop off so that they could dress the set. And they had to be really organized and really concise because they had like half a day to dress this set. So it's really collaborative. And and graphics did some labels for the big spice jars up there on the counter, and we had to get all that stuff dropped off to them.
Well, I think this is probably a good endpoint for.
Okay.
I will stop the recording in a second. Thank you everybody for showing up. If you have any last minute questions, if not, I will stop the recording and you can ask any questions you have off archive. And this will be up on We Are DCBS.
Thank you much.
Where's the recording?
How? Miss Webb, Miss Webb.
Hi.
How was the last one, Rise and Red? Like, I still can't stop finding out every time you say that. Like,